came to Medina, they were open and they had a lot of strength in their numbers, and they were able to perform Salah openly, and they were able to express Islam openly. Now, amongst the teachings of Islam is the rulings of business and buying and selling. That's why generally you see the differences in the Quran between verses of Makkah and verses of Medina. Verses of Makkah generally refer to Iman and Akhirah and many different stories of the Prophets, but a lot of the verses of Medina are to do with rulings. How to perform this, how to do that, rulings of buying and selling, business, trade, ruling, etc. How to deal with politics as well, that's also referred to in the Quran. Because at this point there was a need for it. So the verses of buying and selling were revealed in Medina because there was a need for it now. Muslims had begun doing business openly and they needed to form an economy. So that's one of the things that Prophet ﷺ did. So when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina and now Muslims started growing in number and the foundations was laid for the Muslim empire, the need for an economy was there as well. And the main source of economy in those times were farming, but the major source was buying and selling, and that took place in the Suq of Bani Qaynuqa, which is around about here as well. They've literally 6 months ago, this whole construction they see now, that happened like Ramadan time, last Ramadan. So they've only started very recent. That's what are you okay?
Yeah, I think he just dropped his phone. Sorry.
That's fine. So it's in there that Suq Bani Qaynuqa, as I referred to as. So when the Muslims came to Medina, one of the major differences were in terms of the people that were there, the demographic of the people. So in Makkah, you had Muslims and then you had the Mushrikeen, the non-Muslims at the time, the people of Makkah. But in Medina, you had Muslims who were majority now, they had the power, and the non-Muslims were made up of Jewish people. The Jewish people, just like Muslims had Muhajirin and Ansar, the Jewish people had three tribes, major tribes: Banu Qurayza, Banu Nadir, and Banu Qaynuqa. Banu Qaynuqa, they were in that area over there, and that was their suq, and they had control of. They had the monopoly over the whole economy of Medina. Eventually, as Muslims grew in number and different events took place, Banu Qaynuqa were exiled from Medina, and that was at that point the Muslims now began to have control over the market, and they were able to establish the rules of Islam in terms of business and trade. Now it was the point here, this, as I said, Umar radiallahu anhu would actually regularly visit, when he was Khalifa, he would regularly visit these markets, particularly this market here, and he would take out those people who were uneducated in the rules of Islam. And he says that if you're not educated in the rules of buying and selling, then either directly or indirectly, whether you want to or not, you will eventually fall into haram. This is an important lesson for us now. Just like Islam talks about ibadah that we see, ibadah that we're going to do salah, you're going to do hajj, umrah, and he sets out rulings, and many people ask questions about those things. Tomorrow afternoon we have fiqh of umrah. The whole session you just discuss how to do umrah. Similarly, Islam covers rulings of buying and selling. The whole concept of how to buy, how to sell, what's halal, what's haram. These are things we need to educate ourselves on. Just like we educate ourselves in salah, to an equal degree, we need to educate ourselves in buying and selling, and it's also part of iman as well. So doing the buying and selling in the halal way is also a form of ibadah that we can do as well. Yeah, whole sharia of everything. That's one of the miracles of Islam. That's my master's, my major in my master's Islamic finance is based upon the Islamic viewpoint on economy, particularly banking. So all these modern day concepts of banking that we have, the foundation principles from an Islamic point of view were set a long time ago.
So a quick question to you, that market that we were talking about, when we were here last time, that market was here.
Yeah, that's what I think it was here.
Yeah,
only 6 or 7
about
months
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Only about 6 or 7 months ago, they began. So what happened was that the market was originally there in earlier times. Later on, they got rid of it. But then when they built another marketplace, they built it in the same location. So again, as I said, this whole expansion that we see now, this western side, to expand the women's prayer area, that only started at 6 or 7 months ago. Okay. But hopefully they've got this plan here to build a museum here. Hopefully that goes well, and there's, inshallah, I hope good things happen. So in terms of that market particularly, as I said, that was the main market of Medina. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina, that would be his main source of business when he would buy and sell items, and likewise the rest of the Sahaba. It was here that the Prophet ﷺ, he would make dua for barakah. And he said that, for example, Allahumma barik lana fi muddina wa fi sa'ina wa fi tamrina, oh Allah, put barakah in our mud and sa' are basically measurements. So measurements that they would use to measure something. Just like we have kilograms, we have liters, etc. So one mud is basically one handful. And one mud and mud. that's how much the Prophet ﷺ used in terms of to make wudu. This amount of water, one handful, that's how much the Prophet ﷺ make wudu with. And 4 times this amount is 1 sa', and that's how much the Prophet ﷺ would do from ghusl with. Even till now, they have the exact measurement. The mud of Medina exactly have the basin and the size of how much. That's literally 1 bowl. We're very fortunate. That's the thing. Subhanallah, we have a lot of blessings that we need to appreciate them. And it's a good thing that Allah has given us these all blessings that we have from wudu open, as long as we shukr and give shukr appropriately. Otherwise, you see, generally in Islam, something can be blessing, something can be a test and a particular punishment. It's your reaction to see how it is. For example, money. Money can be good, money can be bad. Money is praised in the Quran. It's actually referred to as khair in the Quran. But at the same time, money can be used for bad. It's how you use those blessings that Allah has given you. So in that marketplace, there's a lot of barakah. And generally in Medina, you'll find there's so much barakah in everything. And compared to Makkah and Medina, you're going to go over there towards that area. So in terms of Makkah and Medina has more barakah. If Makkah is blessed and is established in the Quran, but Medina has more barakah due to the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. When he said, Allahumma ja'al bil Medina di'fay ma ja'alta min Makkah min al-barakah. Oh Allah, however much Makkah there is however much barakah and blessings there is in Makkah, make the double amount of blessings in Medina. And you'll see this as well. I was just talking this morning to a taxi driver, and I was just discussing Medina, and he's pointing out that whenever he's in Medina, he'll suffice on a certain amount of food. But when he'll go out to Medina, he has to eat more to fill because he's just not the same. And you see this as well. Everything in terms of buying and selling, the business, food as well, everything in Medina is blessed and has more blessings. And you'll realize this when you go out, even just, let's say you go to the near city of Medina, even though it's around the corner, the prices are the same, you'll think that, you'll realize the barakah. And that's why generally I would encourage you guys, if you're going to buy gifts, etc., and do shopping, then go ahead and buy in Medina. Inshallah, there'll be more barakah. And also, many people have added that if you to think about when you buy and sell local in Medina, increases the economy of the local Medina. So imagine how happy the Prophet ﷺ would be to see Medina growing and Medina flourishing as it is now. So also it can be an indirect means of getting reward.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can we bargain when we're buying something?
Yeah,
because my father used to tell me when you're buying anything in Medina, never bargain.
Okay, so generally go ahead and bargain, there's nothing wrong. The reason probably he said that, and this is me having a guess, is that he just probably wanted, for example, just to make it easy for the people in Medina, and whether he's going to pay extra or not, then he think at least I'm helping the people in Medina with the extra money. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with bargaining. Go ahead and bargain. And I would argue, go ahead, make sure you bargain. It's your right to bargain. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead.
No, but the vendors they love it because it's a way to keep you in their store.
Yeah,
and it's
also quite funny as well sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Right. Yeah.
Especially most of the shop owners here and the workers, they're Desi people.
Yeah. And they're already actually, if you don't bargain, they may get surprised. Like, okay, I got my price that I'm asking for.
Oh, exactly, it's normal. So I would say always bargain. Always bargain.
Yeah, so my mother used to bargain a lot, and my father used to ask her not to do it in Medina.
Yeah, that's out of I understand why you say that, out of love for Medina, because you think, chalo, if I'm spending $1-2 extra or whatever I'm spending extra, it's in Medina, and out of love for Medina, khalas, it's as if I'm giving charity in Medina. So go ahead. Yeah, this area is really beautiful. They've literally just done it up. Again, past a year or two, they've done this area. So we've actually left Medina now. We've actually left. See how long that took? 1 minute? 2 minutes? We left. Imagine, look at the difference between here and Bab al-Salam. It's about 500 meters or so. See, nowadays when we see it, it's actually quite funny. We're thinking, how was there different masjid? But even I'm talking about later on, after the Prophet's time and after the Sahaba's time. So you can see this boundary of Medina. What happened was, Medina in terms of its physical appearance was similar to cities in the Middle East in that it was like a fort city. So there would be like a major wall barrier around Medina, protecting Medina. Especially in the night time, they would close these gates and no one would be allowed to enter. Abwab, yeah, khalas, the major abwab, that's why. So they would close these gates of Medina and nobody would be able to enter. It would protect the inhabitants of Medina from wild animals. We don't really realize this now because of modern day times, but in the desert area around Medina, between Makkah and Medina, there were loads of wild animals. Side they refer to as wild animals. So there were loads of animals there ready to attack and to hurt you. That's why they would close the gates to protect the inhabitants of Medina. So people will live within the walls of Medina, and more people will come to Medina, and then the population would grow. They need to expand. So what happened was these areas that were built here, they were actually little villages as well. and they had their own like little roads and routes. So there will be one area over there, Masjid Ali just over there, there's another masjid over there. There will be like little pockets of where little hamlets where people will live, and because there's no more space for them to enter and live in Medina. So that's why there are these masajid, and that's why these masajid were actually used up until recently. Obviously now they're not used for daily 5 times salah because it's, you can, like what, 30-second, 1 minute walk. But in the olden times, there was routes and houses everywhere all over Medina, all between here and there, and it's very difficult to go from there to there. It would take 15 minutes, whatever. Even though now it's very easy. So the reason we're here is to point out these two significant mosques. Now this area here, this masjid here is referred to as Masjid-Al-Nabwi, and this masjid over here is referred to as Masjid Abi Bakr. As I mentioned before, and later on people actually perform salah 5 times salah. They would actually perform salah 5 times. Okay, now they don't because it's very close proximity. But during the Ottoman Empire time, for example, which is about just 200 years ago, early 20th century finished, people would perform salah here. As you can, there will be like a group of people living here. To bring things into context, yeah, people with houses up until recently, I'm talking about 30, 40 years ago, the houses would be here. So in the court of Masjid-Al-Nabwi, people would live here, that would be the houses. I have a friend of mine, his father was born in a house, like area that's right next to you, and he says to me as well, that toilet over there, number 3, you get a better view, that's where his house, he was born up, he lived in the house there. Even Medina generally, like, this area here, this Safia, my teachers will mention here that there will be a date garden here. So there will be no major road, but there will be a date garden here. But again, a lot of things, alhamdulillah, blessed in living in Medina, you hear stories from your teachers and their generation. They'll say that, go away. So it was actually,
Listen to you.
yeah, it's not no problem. So there were actually houses adjacent to Masjid-Nabwi, and that's how Medina was. You get a better view as we go that way. Houses adjacent to Masjid-Nabwi, and in I think 90s, not 90s, but I think 90s in terms of Hijri. So Hijri is about 40 years ago, maybe 50 years ago. There was a great fire, and all these houses were destroyed. A lot of the houses were destroyed because one of the houses caught on fire, passed on to the next. That was all in this area here. And part of the fire went to Masjid-Nabwi as well. The famous fire that took place. So that's how Medina was. Until now, Medina's always been like that. So that's why so these were built by Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was an he was an Umayyad Khalifa, and he's referred to as the 5th Khalifa, Qaidi Khalifa. So he was originally the Amir of Medina, like the governor of Medina, like the major of Medina, and later on he was eventually promoted to the leader of the Muslim Empire. He became Khalifa. So he had a lot of inayah, and he gave a lot of importance to preserving those masajid that were of historic significance. So for example, remember early on today when we went to Sabah Masajid where the Battle of Khandaq took place, those little masajid that we pointed out, the 7 mosques, many of them were built by Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. And obviously later on they redeveloped, so this has been redeveloped by Saudis, redeveloped by Ottomans and then Saudis later on. But the general shape that they have and design was Ottoman design. Literally, I think about 2 weeks ago, within a month or so, 2 weeks ago, they just refurbished it and they opened it again. So I wasn't sure if they opened it. I think they closed it now. Yeah. So a lot of these masajid they're going to try and preserve as much as possible. Or at least as much as possible. And this area as well, they're not going to, from the plans that they have now, they're not going to expand Masjid-Nabwi from this front side. And I'll discuss in terms of the expansion of Masjid-Nabwi, when we get a better view, we'll discuss the actual expansion and compare Masjid during the time of the Prophet ﷺ to how it is now and how it evolved over the time. But it's actually this area here, that going back here, is Masjid-Al-Ghamama, where the Prophet ﷺ would perform Eid Salah. So we don't, Western countries we have it to some degree, but for example I'm from Bangladesh originally and I've seen it done, they would have like an Eidgah. So this would be the Eidgah of Medina. So the Prophet ﷺ for Eid Salah, he would gather all the Sahaba, in the hadith he mentioned, gather the women, the children, everyone would come out of Medina into one large area and he performed Eid Salah. This was the area that he performed Eid Salah. This is also referred to, so that's referred to Masjid Ghamama. It's also one of the names of it. I remember mentioned early on, we went to these different masajid. A lot of them have several names, more than one name. So another name for this masjid is Al-Musalla. And I'll explain the significance of that name later on when we go in that direction over there. Another masjid that's over there, this little hut, and you can see it's very close. It's like what, 50 meters. It's Masjid Abi Bakr. It's actually here that Salat al-Istisqa took place. And Salat al-Istisqa is a salah, it's a prayer that you pray for rain. So when there's a big drought, there's a dire need for water, there's no rain. The sunnah is that you make dua, you make a specific salah. It's a unique way to perform that salah, and it's a way of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for rain. And the background to that was a person came to the Prophet ﷺ and he complained that halakat al-mawashi, all of our crop, our in terms of animals that we have, they're dying slowly because of the lack of rain. And bear in mind, as I mentioned, the main source of economy was business, it was also farming as well. So if there's no rain, no crops, no buying and selling of those crops. Also on the animals, there's nothing for them to graze on, so the animals will go down as well. So it's a big water. We don't really appreciate the importance of water. Parts of the states, you guys have droughts as well. I think California, so you have some degree, and especially now in Australia, that just happened. There's a huge drought.
Not
But
us.
no, that's
We are the
you
ones
okay?
staying.
Especially not UK. UK, it rains too much. It rains too much. So that's the importance of rain. So they came to Prophet ﷺ and they asked to make dua for rain. So Prophet ﷺ made dua for rain. And then he mentioned in the hadith that it rained so much for that 1 week continuously that they came back. The same Sahaba came back the next week. So the first they complained, not enough rain. Now they came, there's too much rain, make dua to stop the rain. And that's when the Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma hawalayna la alayna, oh Allah, make it rain around us, not directly on top of us. So that Salatul Istisqa that took place, one of the narrations that it took place in that masjid, that's over there, Masjid Abi Bakr. Some people say it took place in Masjid Ghamama. That's why they refer to this as Masjid Ghamama, because Ghamama literally means clouds. And it's mentioned that when the Prophet ﷺ performed Istisqa, a lot of clouds came to Medina. He mentioned in the hadith that originally there's not a cloud in sight. But when the Prophet ﷺ made dua for the rain, loads of clouds came, particularly in this area. And Ghamama means clouds, so that's why they named this area Masjid Ghamama. Part of the reason why there's slightly difference of where the actual Salah took place, you can see the close proximity, it's like 50 meters away. That's one of the reasons why there's slight difference where what took place and where it took place.
So what's the name of the mosque?
So that's Masjid Abi Bakr, and that's his Masjid Ghamama. The names of the masjid came later on. The different historians came afterwards and they would give the name. Otherwise, the Masjid Ghamama is what is referred to as well. And even I think from a hadith as well, that's referred to as Masjid Ghamama. And it's also referred to as Musalla, which I'm going to discuss why it's referred to Musalla later on. But that masjid there, in terms of the names of Sahaba, so you have Masjid Abi Bakr over here, you have Masjid Ali, you have Masjid Umar, Masjid Bilal. Those names came later on.
Which one is Masjid Bilal?
So
Again,
Masjid
sorry.
Bilal,
Hamza, you want to know?
So yeah, you can see the back. It's a massive white masjid, big masjid. I don't think you can see from here.
No, you see, you just said Bilal, so now he has a question, you know.
So, was Hazrat Bilal buried at Masjid Bilal?
No, he's not buried there. So, in terms of Bilal, the question was, is Bilal radiallahu anhu buried in Masjid Bilal? So, can you see the masjid? You can't see it, but it's just there. You can see the overpass. Yep.
Yeah.
It's just behind the overpass. When we leave Medina, and we go Ihram and finally in Medina, remind me to point out Masjid Bilal.
Okay.
Because we're going to drive past it and I'll point it out.
Remember, okay?
Yeah, he loves Hazrat Bilal, so again, he is going to ask.
Sorry?
Exactly, he's buried.
Oh, you're buried. Okay, so you're buried. Okay, that's a good point. I'm going into the buried. So he's not buried there. Now, one thing to point out is Medina, as I mentioned, is the best place to be. It's the best place to live. So that's why Prophet ﷺ said that even to die as well, it's the best place to die. Prophet ﷺ said, "Man istata'a minkum an yamuta fil Madinah falyaf'al, fa inni kuntu lahu shafi'an aw shahidan yawm al-qiyamah." That whosoever amongst you has the ability to die in Medina, and they should do so. Because if that happens, then I would be a witness for them to enter paradise, and I will be an interceder for them on the day of judgment. So that's why generally Sahaba as well later on, and it's good that you mentioned that, I'm going to discuss it now. Many of the Sahaba, particularly Umar radiallahu anhu, were very, had a lot of hirs and they gave a lot of concern, and they really desperately wanted to die in Medina and get buried in Baqi. And that's why Umar radiallahu anhu made a dua, and it's a dua, a very beloved dua to me, and generally read it as much as possible, or at least say the equivalent in English. Allahumma razukni shahadatan fi sabilik waj'al mawti fi baladi nabiyyik. Oh Allah, grant me martyrdom in Medina, grant me martyrdom in your path, and make my death in Medina. And I'll discuss that later on as we go towards Umar radiallahu anhu's grave. So in terms of where they're buried. So in spite of their love for Medina, and in spite of their desire to die in Medina, they realized, and my teacher pointed it out, he said that living in Medina is the best place to live, except for one situation and for one person. Is that person who leaves Medina for the sake of deen, and he goes back to his locality or different localities to spread Islam and to spread deen. That's why many different Sahaba, they knew the virtues of Medina and they knew the virtues of dying here. But many of the Sahaba left.
Yeah.
They left Medina to go out in the path of Allah to spread Islam. So Bilal radiallahu anhu was amongst one of the Sahaba, and he's actually buried in, from what I can recall, in Syria. possibly Turkey, I think. Like different, some Sahaba, yeah, Syria, from what I recall. Syria, from what I recall, is buried in Syria. He's buried in Syria, in Dimashq.
इनका सीरिया का टूर लग गया पक्का
हम सबको दर्द है.
He is definitely going to insist his parents to
Take him to Syria.
You can see the photos online. So you can actually see the area that is attributed to Bilal radiallahu anhu's grave, and you can actually see that. We're going to walk in this direction here. So, in terms of Medina, as I mentioned, the blessings of Medina, one of the virtues of Medina, and it's a beautiful hadith, in terms of shows the importance of Medina, and the people. You want a question? Go ahead.
I mean, who buried Bilal?
So those Sahaba that were with him. So when Bilal radiallahu anhu left, just like you have your friends in school, and you have your family, yeah. So when Bilal radiallahu anhu passed away, he had his friends with him. So when he passed away, they buried him there. There were loads of Muslims there. Bear in mind, just like you have Muslims in Makkah, you have Muslims in Medina, you have Muslims in, where are you from? New Jersey. You have Muslims in New Jersey, you have Muslims in the UK. So when a person dies, the people, his friends that are with them, his or her friends, they would bury him. So similar to Bilal radiallahu anhu. So when he passed away and he was traveling in Syria, he got buried there by his friends. Yeah? The 6-year-old, that's some very difficult questions. I have to think, where's Bilal radiallahu anhu buried? I'm pretty sure it's Syria that he's buried. Because there's a few different Sahaba that were buried in Turkey. So I'm going to discuss Khalid bin Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, where his house was. We're going to discuss it now. So, Abu Ayyub, sorry? Hamza. So Hamza radiallahu anhu, early on today, he's buried there.
You saw that, remember?
Many grown-ups don't know that.
Even I didn't know that.
Yeah, brilliant. So in terms of living in Medina, one of the virtues of Medina, it's a beautiful hadith. So when the Prophet ﷺ entered Makkah as a conqueror, and Makkah now became under the Khilafah of the Muslims, it became under the custodianship of Muslims. Some of the people of Makkah, and some of the people of Makkah, and some of the people in Medina, they were worried, particularly the people of Medina were worried, the Prophet ﷺ is going to take Makkah as his hometown now. Because he's born there, that was his original city, and he was in Medina for his hijrah. Now because he was kicked out of Medina, kicked out of Makkah, but now he's welcome back in Makkah. They thought that now he's going to stay in Makkah, and they were worried. So they approached the Prophet ﷺ. To which the Prophet ﷺ said a beautiful hadith, and it shows this hadith is one of the most powerful hadith in my opinion. That shows the virtue of Medina, but also the people of Medina and how important they are. And the people of Medina at all times, you can see they have very virtuous. So he said that لو سلك الناس واديا وسلك الأنصار واديا. In one way, وسلك أهل المدينة واديا لسلكت مسلك أهل المدينة. That if the whole of mankind were to take one path, but the people of Medina were to choose another path. So imagine that. So you have billions of people, billions, literally trillions of mankind. Not just Muslims, said mankind. Muslims, non-Muslims were to walk one path, but the people of Medina were to walk one path. Then I will be with the people of Medina, and I will walk the same path as the people of Medina. That's why the Prophet ﷺ came back to Medina, and he chose this place as his final resting place. And that's why the area that the Prophet ﷺ is buried, Tabi Ayyab in Shifa mentions that area there is greater than the Arsh of Ar-Rahman, the Arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's just amongst that's why that area there is particularly exceptionally barakah and exceptionally more blessed. I'm just going to go through this area here. I think, yeah, this is fine. We're not going to go too close because there's a lot of extra security in that area there. So they don't like people gathering there as much as possible. So now that we go back in terms of discussing Medina, just point out a few different geographic nuances that there. Look, smile on camera. So that door that you see here, door number 5, you see here, that's referred to, it's that major door, so there's major gate. Door number, that's called Bab Quba. So in a direct line, if you were to walk out that door and take a straight line and walk straight, it leads you directly towards Masjid Quba. Directly towards Masjid Quba. That's where we went early on, the first Masjid. So Prophet as I said, every Saturday morning, make his way towards Masjid Quba, either walking or on horseback. He would go over there. And he passed by all the roads that you would see people there, greet them, Muslim, non-Muslim, give them da'wah, and tend to their needs. Now that's just Masjid Quba per se. Now in terms of the Masjid itself, so you can see the differences as well when you go inside the Masjid. You can see the difference between the original Masjid. Between the original Masjid, we stay here, this is far enough, we don't need to go close per se. Between the original Masjid and that has a unique design that was built, and that's modern day renovated by the Ottomans. And you have the Saudi expansion which came on later on. So the original masjid in the times of Prophet ﷺ was just this small area here in the front area. The small area here. So this whole area that you see there onwards was expanded later on, and it came over different stages of history. But the original masjid is over there, and you can actually see. So originally when the Prophet ﷺ built the masjid, and the story of how he came here. Now, initially when he came to this area here, even though as I said Quba was over there and that's where he came and stopped, so you expect the Prophet ﷺ to come from a southern direction, but he entered Medina from that direction over there, northwest direction. Can anybody have a guess why he came?
Well, I think you said it this morning because he took an unorthodox
unorthodox route. So that's in terms of hijrah. But the reason, again, it's similarly unorthodox route. Geographically, Medina was covered by date gardens, and I mentioned even about 20-30 years ago there was a date garden here over here. So there was no formal path to enter Medina properly except from that direction over there originally. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ came from that northwestern direction, and he came from that path over there. Came over. But in terms of why he chose this area per se, and this area that he built the masjid and his house, etc., there's two reasons as to why he chose this area. Can anybody guess why? Water. Okay, water is a possible one, but they had wells around different parts of Medina. Anyone have a guess? So, okay, there's two reasons why. The first one, remember I said accessibility, possibly because this area is a central area of Medina. But the reason why he chose this particular area, remember I said Medina was based upon different tribes. So one of the tribes was directly linked to the Prophet ﷺ, Bani Najjar. So this area here is the Qarya to Bani Najjar. So how they linked to the Prophet ﷺ. So if you look at the Prophet ﷺ lineage, it's Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib ibn Hashim. So Hashim was the Prophet ﷺ's great grandfather, and he was the leader of Makkah at this time. All the Prophet ﷺ's grandfathers were leaders of Makkah. So he had authority over Makkah, and now he was a businessman. And typically in those times, businessmen, they would travel twice a year. They would travel once in the summer towards Sham, towards Syria, and the second trip would be in the winter towards Yemen. That's why it's referred to in the Quran, Rihlat al-Shita'i wa Sayf.